Hello, welcome to Math Learners Uganda. My name is Sam Ogwang. Today we want to look at a multiplication of matrices. We want to see how we can multiply matrices. But before we can begin, don't forget to click on the subscription button just below this video so that you can subscribe to this channel. You'll be able to get as much content in math as possible. Thank you. Let us begin our multiplication of matrices. Before you multiply two matrices, ensure that the multiplication is possible. How do we know that the multiplication of two matrices is possible? You check the order of the matrices given. If the number of columns in the first matrix is equal to the number of rows in the second matrix, then the multiplication is possible. Otherwise, it's not possible. Let us see some of the examples. A 2 by 2 can multiply a 2 by 2. This is because the number of columns here is 2, and the number of columns here, the number of rows here is also 2. Another one is 2 by 1 and a 1 by 3. The multiplication here is also possible. This is because the number of columns here is 1, and the number of rows here is also 1. I can give you as many examples as possible. Let us also try a 2 by 3 and a 3 by 1. The multiplication is also possible because the number of columns here is 3, and the number of rows here is also 3, so they are equal. Suppose that we have a 2 by 3 and a 2 by 2. The multiplication here is not possible because the number of columns here is 3, is different to the number of rows here in this second matrix. With that, let us go straight and we look at some of the examples under the multiplication of matrices. Let us look at example number 1. So before you can multiply these two matrices, first state the order. This is a 2 by 2 and this one is also 2 by 2. The number of columns here is 2. The number of rows here, is also 2. So the multiplication is possible because they are equal. And when we are multiplying two matrices, multiply the row of the first matrix with all the columns in the second matrix. I repeat, you multiply a row in the first matrix with all the columns in the second matrix. Meanwhile, when you're multiplying the first element, should multiply the first element in the row should multiply the first in the column, and the second must multiply the second, and you separate them, you combine them with the addition sign. So this will give us 1, this 1 times 1, that is 1, plus 4 times 2, that is 8. One column is remaining, so 1 times 4, you get 4, plus the second one should multiply also the second one, that is 4 times 3, and that will give us 12. You repeat with the remaining row. repeat with the remaining row. So the remaining row here is 2, 3. Multiply with all the columns again. Meanwhile, the first one we should multiply the first one in the column. So 2 times 1, you get 2 plus 3 times 2, you get 6. Then 2 times 4, you get 8 plus 3 times 3, that is 9. And that will give us 9. 4 plus 12 is 16. 2 plus 6 is 8. 8 plus 9 is 17. Example number 2. Number 2 is we want to multiply 1, 4 with 2, 1, 3, 2. The first step is to check where the multiplication is possible. This one here is a 1 by 2, and the second matrix is a 2 by 2. The multiplication is possible because the number of columns in the first matrix is equal to number of rows in the second matrix. Since we have only one row, we are going to multiply with these 2 columns. That will be done. So let us multiply this. This will give us the first one should multiply the first, that is 2, and the second one should multiply the second, that is 12. Then repeat with the last column. The first should multiply the first, that is 1, plus the second should multiply the second, that is 8. That will give us now finally, it will give us 14, 9. Let's go to another example, that is example number 3. Number 3 is I want to multiply 2, 1, 4, 2 by 1, -1, -2, -3. So this is still a 2 by 2, multiplying a 2 by 2. So a 2 by 2 multiplying a 2 by 2, the multiplication is obviously possible because the number of columns in the first is equal to the number of rows in the second. So let us multiply these 2. Meanwhile, you multiply a row by all columns, then you come back to the last row with all the columns, and also the first element should multiply the first in the column, the second in the row should also multiply the second in the column. So we shall start with the first row, first column. 2 times 1, we shall get 2 plus 1 times -2, that is -2. Then go to the last column. 2 times -1, that is -2, plus 1 times -3, that is -3. Come back to the last row and repeat with all the columns. So 4 times 1, that is 4, plus 2 times -2, that is -4. 4 times -1, we are now in the last column. We get -4 plus 2 times -3, that is -6. That is -6. This will now give us 0. -2 plus -3 is -5. 4 plus -4 is 0. -4 plus -6 is -10. Let us proceed to another example. That will be example number 4. Number 4, we want to multiply 32 by 1 4 3 2 1 7. How can we multiply the two matrices? So you open up big bracket. Of course, this is a 2 by 2 and 3 by 2. This is a 2 by 2 multiplying a 3 by 2. So number 4, the multiplication is not possible because the number of columns in the first matrix is not the same as the number of rows in the second matrix. So the multiplication here is not possible. Let us proceed to another example. That will be example number 5. Number 5 is let us multiply 2 1 3 2 with the 1 4 7 2 3 4 2 3 4. So this is a 2 by 2 multiplying a 2 by 3. The multiplication here is possible because the number of columns in the first matrix is equal to the number of rows in the second matrix. So you open the bracket, you pick a row, you multiply with all the columns. There are 3 columns, so you multiply with all the columns. Meanwhile, the first element in the row multiplies the first in the column plus the second in the row multiplies the second in the column. So we have 2 times 1, that is 2, plus 1 times 2, that is 1 times 2, that is 2. Then we are going to the second column using the first row and second column. 2 times 4, that is 8, plus 1 times 3, that is 3. Now we are going to do the third. We are going to the third column using the first row. So 2 times 7, that is 14, plus 1 times 4, that is 4. Then come back to the we come back to the last row and all the columns again. Meanwhile, the first in that row should multiply the first in the column, and the second should multiply the second. So 3 times 1, we get 3, plus 2 times 2, we get 4. We are going to the second column using the first row, using the second row, I mean. So 3 times 4, we get 12, plus 2 times 3, that is 6. 3 times 7, that is 21, plus 2 times 4, that is 8. This will now give us 4, 11, 18, 7, 18, 29. Thank you for watching. This was the multiplication of matrices part 1. Wait for part 2. Thank you for watching again.